Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing.
We leave the cat out or not?
Do you need to what?
Testing English, testing English. Testing English.
Check 1 2 1 2. Check 1 2. Yep.
Maybe for your technical question.
Hello.
How are you?
Pretty good, you?
Maybe I was singer today.
Oh, that's good.
So I'm an opera singer, so I'm just wondering about the microphone. Like, if I do use it, I'd stand back from it. What would be best for the whole setup, basically? Like, the acoustic sounds pretty
Probably,
good in here.
yeah. If you're pretty loud, then probably what we do is not use this and just turn on 3 mics there.
Fantastic. Sounds. I'm happy with that. You can do it.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay.
All right.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. If we could ask members of council to take their seat, we'll begin the meeting in 1 minute. On va commencer la réunion dans 1 minute. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Bienvenue au Conseil municipal de la ville d'Ottawa.
Welcome to City Council meeting on July 13.
13th of July, 2016. For those who are able to, could you please rise for a moment of personal reflection and remain standing as we introduce our national anthem singers. If you could remain standing, and Councillor Nussbaum will introduce our very special guest. The four tenors were not able to be here, but we received great news from Councillor Nussbaum that one of his constituents is going to sing our national anthem.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This national anthem introduction actually has a bit of a story, and the story is that when I was told that I had to find a singer for this council meeting, I reached out to the community member in my ward, Nectar board member, and Heart House board member Isabel Bisbee. And Isabel said to me, well, the person who you have to ask is Maureen Maloney, known as Mo, who is a fantastic singer. She will do this. Heartwood House is in your ward. It's a wonderful institution. For those who don't know, it houses 16 not-for-profit groups and is a great hub in Rideau Rockcliffe. Now, at 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, I got an email from Mo, and unfortunately Mo had a family emergency for which we are sorry. So she turned to Isabel and said, Isabel, can you help? And as a sign of the great connections between Heartwood House and Nectar and the community writ large, Isabel said, of course, I've got someone for you. And of course, normally when you hear about a scratch and someone replacing someone else, you know, you could be disappointed. But in this case, sorry, Mo, but the scratch is even better than the original singer. So I'm delighted to introduce Canadian soprano Cara Gilbertson-Bose, who brings passion to her work as a soloist, as an educator, as an adjudicator, and as the vocal singer for Mark's daughter, I think. So another great council connection for Mark Taylor's daughter. And Cara is a frequent soloist with the Strings and Choir of St. John's Anglican Church that's in your ward, or is that in your ward? Anyway, in one of them, and where she is the artist in residence. She made her National Arts Centre Orchestra debut in Mendelssohn's A Midsummer Night's Dream. She returned to Southam Hall in Elijah, and she has toured throughout Europe with the Ottawa Bach Choir. She's also a part-time professor at the University of Ottawa, and in 2013 became the performance specialist vocal coach for the Ottawa Regional Youth Choir. She is also, she does a lot, is the co-founder of the Bytown School of Singing and is currently the artistic director for an exciting new Ottawa-based opera company. So we're sorry, Mo, that you weren't able to be here. We're very, very happy that Cara is here in her place. So over to you, please, Cara.
Thank you very, very much for that wonderful rendition of O Canada. At this time in our program, it's the Mayor City Builder Award, and I'd like to invite members of Girls Plus Skate 613 to the podium for this meeting City Builder Award presentation. And they have their boards with them. That's very good. And their councillor, Catherine McKinney, if she could come forward as well. J'inviterai aussi conseillère.
I would also invite Councillor Catherine McKinney to join us.
We'd like to recognize, I'm going to mispronounce the first name. Julia. Julia was spelled with a G. Julia Marcoux, Megan Isaacs, Pauline Mousseau, Rachel Penman, and She Karst. Girls Plus Skate 613 began as a girls-only session at the McNabb Community Center in 2006. And the organization sets out to build community diversity, inclusion, and breaking down stigma by providing a safe space for individuals of all ages, abilities, and gender to skateboard in an encouraging environment. Girls Plus Skate 613 is now a permanent initiative by the Ottawa Skateboard Community Association, OSCA, and membership has doubled since the rebranding in 2013. Recognizing that many, particularly women and members of the LGBTQ community, do not have equal opportunity or access to sports, Girls Plus 613 is dedicated to empowering individuals who might not have other opportunities to enjoy skateboarding. Girls Plus Skate 613 and the OSCA work together to support barrier-free skateboarding by providing equipment, facilitating spaces for skating, hosting events, providing resources and education, and fundraising. The organization hosts regular skate sessions every Thursday night at different skate parks throughout the city. Girls Plus Skate 613 organise
The organization hosts regular skate session every Thursday night at different skate parks throughout the city.
For anyone who wants to try, and all are welcome. I'd like to congratulate, I think Catherine just volunteered me and you to go, and I'll nominate you. I'd like to also congratulate Girls Plus Skate 613 on hosting the very first skate camp this summer, which will take place August 29th to September 2nd for kids aged 6 to 13. Also offering financial assistance for those in need, Girls Plus Skate 613 truly embodies the spirit of inclusivity while building community and sharing a passion for skateboarding. Offrement de l'assistance financière.
Also offering financial assistance for those in need, Girls Plus Skate 613 truly embodies the spirit of inclusivity.
Their Facebook page to learn more. And on behalf of Catherine and members of City Council, it's our pleasure to present you with the Mayor City Builder Award. Thank you for what you're doing in the community. Félicitations. Come on up over here and we'll get a big picture.
Hi, my name is Rachel Fenman, and on behalf of Girls Plus Skate 613, we'd like to thank the Mayor and the Council for recognizing us with this award, and also Sophie Stevenson, who was the one who nominated us, and everyone who came out today, and then also all the folks who come out every week. So, yeah, thanks so much.
Okay. Helmets, bring helmets. Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies. It now gives me great pleasure to announce the presentation of Bravery Awards to 3 outstanding residents of Ottawa. On behalf of City Council and senior management, I extend a warm welcome to all of our guests here today. I'm very pleased to welcome you to this important presentation. Je suis très heureux de vous accueillir.
I'm very pleased to welcome you to this important presentation.
These are 3 honored guests who are being recognized for their actions during a massive fire in Orleans last month on Saturday, June 18th. It's my pleasure to ask to come forward Jeff Walker, Owen Cole, and Alex Deschamps, and to welcome you with this presentation. And I believe Alex is not with us at this point. I'm also pleased to ask Councillor Steve Blais to come forward, the award councillor, to help in the presentation. We welcome Councillor Blais. And I know we have members of your families here as well, which is terrific, and welcome to you all. These individuals are being honored for their quick and heroic actions last month when they ran into a burning house to rescue those inside. I also want to take this opportunity to commend our emergency responders for their quick and professional actions that day. Many of our residents are familiar with the story and the impact of the devastating fire because it was covered extensively in the news. Thankfully, there was no loss of life, but it was a chaotic scene at the time, and there was considerable damage to a number of homes in Orleans. Jeff Walker was interviewed on TV following the blaze and was hailed as a hero for entering a burning building and attempting to remove an unconscious man inside. He made note of another rescuer with him and wanted to acknowledge and personally thank him, and the quote is, "the man in the green construction shirt." The other rescuer was Owen Cole, who reached out to Jeff after seeing the interview. Jeff also identified a third person who assisted with the rescue. That person was Alex Deschamps, a co-worker of Owen, who was also there assisting in the rescue, and Alex is not able to be with us today. I'm pleased to have this opportunity to publicly recognize the heroic actions of these three men during an experience that they will never forget. The fire, as you saw in the news coverage, was devastating, but we're all thankful that everyone survived when things could have been much, much worse. On behalf of my council colleagues and on behalf of the residents of Ottawa, I thank you for doing something that makes us all very proud and very thankful, and we'd like to present you both with these certificates, and in absentia thank your other colleague who's not able to be with us. Ladies and gentlemen, some true heroes in our community. Congratulations.
Thanks very much, Mayor Watson. I guess on behalf of Alex and Owen and myself, I think there's sort of 2 points that I'd want to make. I mean, it was really a random event that happened where complete strangers came together, and I like working in the community as well with all sorts of different people, and I think the thing that stands out for myself is just the age differentiator, where we come from. Two guys that just graduated from high school, but clearly that shows, bravery has no age or limitation. These guys were great, and make new friends out of, a situation that I was driving home. I mean, that's the truth. And then the second was the city. I mean, just watching the city's first responders act so quickly to shut down a street, to take control of, a very, very chaotic environment. I applaud the city, from the paramedics to the firemen to the police. It was incredible to watch. But yes, so thanks very much, and congratulations to you. Okay.
Roll call, please, Madam Deputy Clerk.
Conseiller Manette.
Present.
Councillor Middick.
Here.
Councillor Harder.
Here.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Present.
Councillor El-Shantiri. Councillor Caudry.
Present.
Councillor Taylor.
Here.
Councillor Shirelli.
Here.
Councillor Eglai.
Here.
Councillor Deans.
Here.
Councillor Tierney.
Present.
Conseiller Fleury.
Ici.
Councillor Nussbaum.
Here.
Councillor McKinney.
Present.
Councillor Leeper.
Ici.
Councillor Brockington.
Here.
Councillor Chernyshenko.
Present.
Conseiller Cloutier.
Présent.
Conseiller Blais.
Présent.
Councillor DeRuse?
Here.
Councillor Moffat?
Here.
Councillor Kakish?
Present.
Councillor Hughley?
Here.
Mayor Watson?
You see,
Le Karamit Ten, Monsieur le Maire.
You have quorum.
the 22nd of June 2016, carried. Declaration of interest, including those originally arising from prior meetings. Déclaration de conflit d'intérêt. None. Communications as presented. Regrets. Councillor El Shantiri has advised he will be absent from City Council meeting due to city business. Motion to introduce reports. Motion portant présentation de rapport. Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Minnick, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Minnick, that the report from the City's Integrity Commissioner entitled Report to Council on Inquiry by the Lobbyist Registrar Playground Partnership Project at Mooney's Bay Park, the report from the City Clerk and Solicitor entitled Status Update Council Inquiries and Motions for the period ending July 8, 2016, Agricultural Affairs Committee Report 18, Audit Committee Report 8, Environment Committee Report 10, Finance Economic Development Committee Report 16, Planning Committee Report 28, Transit Commission Report 10, and Transportation Commission Committee Report 16 be received and considered. And that the rules of procedure be suspended to receive and consider the report from the City Treasurer entitled City Debenture Issuance Documentation Requirement, item 3 on the agenda, and Planning Committee Report 29, items 3 and 5, items 17 and 19 on the agenda. Waiver of rules is being requested due to timelines, as the next regular council meeting is not scheduled until August 31st, and that pursuant to subsection 35.5 and 35.6 of the Procedure Bylaw 2014-441, council receive and consider items 1, 2, and 4 of the Planning Committee Report 29, items 15, 16, and 18 on the agenda.
Did you used to be an auctioneer in a previous life? On that motion, carried. Report, City's Integrity Commissioner, Commissaire à l'Intégrité, report to Council. See? City Clerk and Solicitor, Council inquiries and motions for the period ending July 8th, 2016. Received. City Debenture Issuance, Émission de Debenture de la Ville. This is a request from the City Treasurer. Madam Treasurer, if you'd like to explain the timing, please.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. So the timing is right now for us to go out and issue a debenture. We were, as per the plan, planning on doing between $100 to $175 million debenture. Unfortunately, we'll be doing it during the time period when there are no council or committee meetings. So in order to actually go out to market, we need to provide the mayor or his designate with the authority to sign the confirming bylaw, which is the last piece of the work that has to take place with respect to issuing debt. The second thing is that we've changed the process a little bit in order to reduce the workload that's required to go out and issue a debenture. We've issued, as part of this document, there's a list which includes all of the debt that has been authorized but is not yet issued in the City of Ottawa. From that list, we will be choosing, as I said, somewhere between $100 to $175 million worth of works that we want to issue debt against. Borden Ladner Gervais is our outside legal counsel, and they provide what's called an enforceability opinion. And in order to provide that opinion, they need all of the documentation that supports when council approved that debt, any changes to that debt, all the confirming bylaws. And in the past, that has resulted in us sending banker boxes full of documentation for them, because we, as you can see, we don't issue for one project. We issue debt as the work proceeds and as the money is spent. So in order to simplify it, this document summarizes all the debt that's outstanding at this point in time, and that reduces probably by half the amount of documentation that we have to provide BLG to provide that enforceability opinion. So this is a bit of a new process that we're starting in. It's a way for us to streamline and reduce the workload. It represents nothing new. You have authorized all of those projects in past budgets or past council meetings. It just summarizes it in one list. And that's what we're intending to do here, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Cloutier.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. So just a question, Madam Treasurer. So we've issued $435 million of debt, and throughout the summer, as this authority, we intend to issue another 175 for a total of about 610 to the end of August?
We've issued 465 against those projects. There is other debt you've issued, but those projects are not on the list because they're complete and they're But yes, against those projects, we've already done issues totaling 465. We will choose between 100 to 175 million more to issue, which will be added to that.
Okay. And just one final question, Mr. Mayor. On the report, it indicates that we have to issue the debt before the project is started, but I think you just used the word as the project proceeds. Can you just inform me of what the rules are?
The rules are whatever you want. The practice is, yes, you can issue debt before a project begins, and we have actually done that in the past. The example that I would give you is when we did the Ottawa on the Move. Because rates were so favorable, we actually issued in advance of doing the work. In this case, the work is proceeding on all of those projects. We typically have enough cash flow that we don't issue until the work has actually happened and the money has gone out the door, and now we want to replenish our cash that we use for our capital working reserve.
So when it's written debt funding for a project? No.
Councillor Taylor. So we're going to have to come back to this unless it's...
No, I can take it offline.
Okay.
I'm fine. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We can come back to it? No. Okay, on the report? Carried. Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee, report number 18, rapport numéro 18 de Comité de l'Agriculture et des Affaires Rurales. Number 4 is zoning bylaw amendment 2605 Stagecoach Road, and we need to carry the report and carry the summary of submissions. So on carrying the report, carried. On carrying the summary of submissions, carried. Audit Committee report number 8, rapport numéro 8 de Comité de vérification, Office of the Auditor General, rapport sur la ligne de fraude et d'abus. Hold by Councillor Shirelli. Office of the Auditor General report of the review of the Client Service Center Laurier cash handling process and cash discrepancies. Carried. Environment Committee report number 10, rapport numéro 10 de Comité de l'Environnement, financial statements for in-house solid waste collection external audit results 2015. Received. Water service post-adjustment fee review and proposed update. Councillor Caudry, I believe, had a comment to staff on this one.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And just a comment to say to staff, as well as my colleague, Councillor Moffat, for moving the motion that I presented at Environment Committee for a job, well done and completed. This is one of the issues that has been brought over to my office on a regular basis over the last number of years, and I think it's important that we took the action that we are taking with the recommendation on this report. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to staff for following through on that request.
Great. Thank you, Councillor, for the initiative. And Councillor Moffat on the report. Carried. Finance and Economic Development Committee, report number 16, rapport numéro 16 du Comité des finances et de développement économique, un rapport annuel sur le plan de partenariat du Parc Lansdowne. Carried. Good discussion at FEDCO. Ottawa 2017, Ottawa 2017 encroachment issue. Carried. Planning Committee report number 28, rapport numéro 28 du Comité de l'Urbanisme. Councillor Shirelli and Harder, I believe, have a technical amendment. Councillor Shirelli, if you'd like to introduce the amendment, please.
Okay. And it's basically, this is to flesh out the legal wording for the motion that was passed at committee on exemption of Centrepoint. Okay. So it's therefore be it resolved, Council approve number 1, amending document 2B of report ACS 2016-PAI-PGM-0096 by adding a new section as follows. 23 subsection 10.7 is amended by adding the following as 101.7c. Despite subsection 101.1, 101.2, and 101.5 within the area shown as Area A on Schedule 361 and being the Centrepoint community, subsection I, minimum parking space requirements are to be calculated using column 4, Area C on Table 101. II, despite I, where a lot containing residential use other than a bed and breakfast is located within 600 meters of a rapid transit station identified in Schedule 2A or Schedule 2B of this bylaw, the minimum space requirement for the residential use to be calculated using column 3, area B on table 101, III, despite I, where a lot containing a hospital, office, shopping center, or train. Is it carried? Or do you want me to keep going?
Well, I think people have a copy of it. I guess the concern is this exempting your area only?
It's exempting Center Point until we deal with the maximum parking requirement, because we have several other council-approved parking regimes in Center Point that will be affected. So,
and is Councillor Harder okay with this as chair of the committee?
Yeah.
With the Ottawa Community Land Development Corporation specific to the Center Point area. It's quite complex, and we're going to need to see what the maximum is and how it meets with the minimum.
Okay. So on the report, carried. And carried on the summary of submissions. Carried. Right. Our next item is zoning bylaw amendment 27, 33, and 35 Citizens Road. Modification au règlement de zonage 27, 33 et 35 Chemin Citizens. So we have to carry on the report. Carried. And on the summary of submissions. Carried. Item number 13, application for demolition and new construction at 565 and 575 Old Prospect Road, properties designated under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act and located in the Rockcliffe Park Heritage Conservation District. Councillor Harder, seconded by Councillor Nussbaum, has an amendment. Councillor Harder, if you'd like to introduce the amendment, please.
Yeah. Since the approval of the application for demolition, the change is that we no longer need to have 565 Old Prospect included in it. Perhaps if anybody needs more detail on it, Councillor Nussbaum would be able to add more, but it basically amended the recommendations to remove the reference of it, and that was withdrawn by the applicant and the planning committee, and therefore the title no longer reflects the actual decision by committee, the recommendation. So it just removes one part of the address.
Okay, so it's removing 565 Old Prospect Road. Okay, on the motion? Carried. On the report as amended? Carried. Our next item is resolution item 14 of appeal, McGee House, 78 Lisgar Street, designation under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, Résolution de l'appel Maison McGee, 78 Rue Lisgar. Carried. Planning report number 29, rapport numéro 29, comité de urbanisme, Canada North Urban Expansion Study Area, and Councillor Wilkinson has an amendment, seconded by Councillor Blais.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a clarification of what was done at committee because it was done fairly rushed that relates to getting a future field house. So resolve that recommendation 3C be deleted and replaced with the following. Be further resolved that proposed be conditional on either achieving 100% funding through the alternative means identified above or qualifying for funding for up to 50% of the cost through the existing rules of the Community Partnership Major Capital Program. It's simply a clarification that the city solicitor put together after the meeting to make it work a bit better. What this is about, just so people know, is the community park did not include a small field house, and yet it has a lot of different fields and things in it, but there's no money to do it. So the proposal is that we would fundraise to actually build that, and the actual motion was simply to show it on the map so we would preserve the land for it in the future. And then there was some discussion about queue jumping, and this is to make sure that the funding is up to the community and whoever the ward councillors in the area are at the time to bring it and not to take away from other projects.
Okay, so we have some questions on this, so we'll have to come back to this item. Thank you for the introduction of the motion. The next item is item number 16, zoning bylaw amendment, part of 570 Hazeldean Road, modification au règlement de zonage 570 Chemin Hazeldean. Carried. Item 17, application to alter Somerset House, 352 Somerset Street West, a property designated under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act. And there's questions and comments on that, so we'll come back to it. Zoning bylaw amendment, 950 Terry Fox Drive, and part of the unaddressed parcel immediately to the north. Modification règlement de zonage 950 Promenade Terry Fox. Carried. Item 19, waiver to permanent signs on private property bylaw, mural at 595 Gladstone Avenue. Demande de dérogation au règlement sur les enseignes permanentes sur la propriété privée. Peinture murale au 595 Avenue, Gladstone. Carried. Item number 20, under Transit Commission Report number 10, Paratranspo Service Standards for Eligibility and Booking, Service de Paratranspo, Normes et Matières d'Admissibilité et de Réservation. Carried. Congratulations. Transportation Committee Report number 16, Rapport numéro 16 du Comité de Transport, Review of Winter Operations. Councillor Eglai and McKenney have a technical amendment. Councillor Eglai, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So essentially, I'll just what this does is I brought a motion at the committee meeting to remove the recommendation to change the threshold for plowing from 7 to 10. That was carried unanimously. As a result, some of the savings that were anticipated in the report are not there anymore, and I'll just get to therefore be it resolved. The Council amend the report recommendations read as follows. The Transportation Committee recommend the Council approve $2.7 million net in cost containment strategies and operational adjustments as outlined in the report, including A, establishing a tiered response approach that adjusts the ratio of internal and contracted services, anticipated operating savings of $1.5 million, and B, adjusting salting and plowing routes to meet maintenance quality standards, anticipated operating savings of $1.2 million.
Okay, so on the amendment that changes the amounts, carried. On the report, carried. Our next item is commemorative naming, Heron Road Workers Memorial Bridge motion. That committee recommendation, the Council approve the Heron Road Bridge to be named the Heron Road Workers Memorial Bridge, Pont commémoratif des travailleurs de chemin Heron. I know Councillor Brockington brought this forward. Do you have a comment, Councillor?
Thank you, Your Worship. No debate. Just wanted a round of thank yous. I wanted to acknowledge Sean McKenney of the Ottawa and District Labour Council on his initiative for bringing this to our attention. I know he spoke to yourself and myself as the ward councillor, as well as Chair Eglai and the Transportation Committee who dealt with this matter and passed it unanimously last week. Thank you very much for adding that to your agenda. I appreciate that. I just wanted to note, Mr. Mayor, that in the committee report, it touched upon consultation, and there was a line about no consultation, but this did go through the clerk's office, a commemorative naming process. There was a month-long consultation that was undertaken by the city, and there were public comments received, so I just wanted to note that. But again, thank you to the committee who heard this last week, and I appreciate support today. Thank you.
Great. On the committee recommendation, carried. Adopté. Merci. Item number 23 is Bearbrook Road Speed Reduction Motion, réduction de la limite de vitesse sur le chemin Bearbrook. Carried. Carried. Thank you. Bulk consent agenda. Does anyone wish to remove anything from the bulk consent agenda? On the bulk consent agenda, carried. And carried on the summary of submissions for item J. Carried. And then disposition of items approved by committees under delegated authority. Carried. All right, so we'll go back to those items that have been held. The first one that I have is the Auditor General Report on Fraud and Waste Hotline. Councillor Shirelli asked that this be held. Councillor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, first of all, I just wanted to say that it was just over a decade ago that Councillor Harder moved the motion at Council to create the Fraud and Waste Hotline, and as usual, I agreed with her. And There were a lot of skeptics at the time, but the Fraud and Waste Hotline has proven itself to be a very valuable tool here at the city, not only for compliance, but also for making changes to save tax dollars. And also, I think it provides a bit of a trend at types of management issues that you might need to look at. So in that, I also wanted to thank our former Deputy Auditor General, who oversaw about 10 years of this and did a very good job of it. And now, as I look at this report, there are a couple of changes that seem to be happening, and there's, for instance, a reduction in the alcohol and drug and substance abuse while on the job, so there's a reduction on that, but there's an increase in embezzlement. So first of all, I'd like to ask the AG if he thinks there's any connection, and assuming not, if he sees any sort of trend in that category, or those two categories.
Mr. Mayor, through you to the Council, I think although interesting, I think it's hard to state that it is a trend and that there is a connection. I think each year the reports that we, the category of the reports that we have are very much dependent on the reports that we get. So I'm not confident enough in to be able to say that we'll see a further reduction in alcohol on the job and an increase in embezzlement. I think it just depends on what was reported during that year. But it's certainly an interesting question.
I suppose it's harder to embezzle if you're impaired. But then the next major change that I see is, well, this is always the big one. When I was chair of audits, one that people always came to me about, and I'm sure they come to Councillor Hubley about, and that's the unauthorized use or misuse of city property, information, or time. And to what extent do you think changes could be made that could result in real savings for taxpayers in that category?
Mr. Mayor, through you to the Council, I think I think as we go about our audits through the city, we also add additional areas of focus when we're looking at a particular function in a particular area, and we will be focusing, for example, on the next in the next couple of years we'll have an increased focus on the personal use of city vehicles, for example. We know that there was a report earlier in the year in the media about city vehicles being seen after hours and in the driveways of city staff, and that's a normal occurrence and it's an acceptable occurrence, but there are rules around that. And as we conduct our audits throughout the city, we'll ensure that those rules are followed.
And on that, are you going to, one of the most common complaints in that area that we get is, emergency vehicles being in the drive-through at McDonald's or something. And if there's a fire truck at McDonald's, I think it's better than if they leave the fire truck at the station and go to McDonald's, because they then have to return to the station if they're going to respond to a call. Are you going to be ensuring that you look at the best way to protect the safety of residents?
I think, Mr. Mayor, we do continue to receive the odd report of a fire truck seen in the parking lot of a grocery store, for example, and we understand that is an approved and an acceptable trip on the part of the fire department, and we provide that standard response provided to us by fire services back to the reporter, so that they understand the reason for that.
Yeah, I'm not just trying to boost business for the Tim Hortons and Bell's Corners, but okay. But the increase each year tends to be in this category, and I know the process for investigating used to be, when I was chair anyway, that the items were identified and categorized, because a lot of them are repetitive and a lot of them are sometimes the same person reporting. But you would identify the significant ones and hand them off to the city manager, and the city manager did the investigation. Is that what happens now?
Mr. Mayor, that's correct. The bulk of the reports are investigated by the city manager's office. There is a coordination between their office and our office on the results of that investigation. If we feel that there were aspects of the investigation that weren't adequate, we will ask them to look into it, and they report back to us with the results.
And then you complete the audit out of that, and it is given to audit committee and council along with recommendations. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Thank you. Est-ce qu'il y a des autres questions?
Are there any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe we could take this opportunity to also thank the Auditor General and his office for producing such a great report that showed us that every claim that comes in does get investigated or vetted, and that it all goes towards making us a better operating city, that our citizens can have confidence that we're watching our tax dollars. So thank you very much for your work. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Mr. Hughes. On the report received, our next item that's been held is Councillor Wilkinson had amendment to the Canada North Urban Expansion Study Area, and Councillor Tierney had a question or comment.
I'm not sure who I should direct this to, but I think I'll start with the mover of the motion.
Councillor Tierney. I think Councillor Chernyshenko, do you want to introduce our guests who are leaving?
Oh.
Okay, Councillor Chernyshenko's mic.
Close. There we go. Thanks for joining us today. We have a civics class, grade 10, I believe, class from Immaculata High School. They're from throughout the city, but they're taking a summer course. Councillor Fleury and I gave them the real deal on what happens at City Hall this morning. You may not want to know, but thank you for joining us.
Right. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Tierney. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So maybe I'll just ask some questions to the mover of the motion. As we know, at Planning Committee yesterday, it was kind of messy, and even at the end of the day, I questioned how many people actually knew what was in that final motion related to the field house. What's the difference between the end of the day yesterday, where we took an hour of time and a 5-minute break and tried to hash out some details where it was still unclear? What's the difference between yesterday and today?
Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you. Thank you. I simply asked the solicitor after the meeting, with the wording that was there, that if this was not included in the plan, even if we had 100% funding in the recreation plan, would we be able to do it? And actually, Tim Mark is the one that actually produced this and brought it to me. I didn't actually ask him to do it, because he felt it clarified things that if the community is paying for it, whether or not it's in the master plan, it could go ahead. The basis of that whole motion was simply, it is in the documentation that you could have one if it's fundraised, but it implied that it had to be done before they built the park. But there was a fit plan, which is a plan that shows where everything goes, and this was not shown on the plan. So the motion was simply to show on the plan that there'd be a space for it. And as you know, it kind of grew at the committee because some people thought it might be trying to get funding from the city for things before it would have been done normally, which was not the intention at any time. This is to clarify that, to ensure that people know that it is not be funded by the city. It is actually in here that it would be a fundraising. And I've done a lot of fundraising in my community. I know it can be done. And Mr. Mark took it also to Councillor Blais, who had put that last paragraph, that line in, and he has agreed to it and seconded the motion. So it's really just to clarify things. It's not to actually change things, but to make it simpler to be able to understand that if the field house is going there, it has to be provided other than by city funds directly unless we are actually eligible for the 50% grant, and that may or may not ever happen. Does that help?
No.
No, unfortunately it doesn't. And I think my big issue is the amount of circulation and discussion. If, as a councillor, if I'm proposing a motion, I'll go and work fellow councillors to make sure there's a firm understanding. The other question I had at planning yesterday was specific to, should we all start doing this from now on, putting placeholders and putting these additional items within planning committee, because it's going to set a precedent where any time there's a new development going in, that we all should take the same approach to make sure that we rise to the top. So on the lack of clarity, the bird's nest of modifications to this motion, I'll simply be dissenting on this item.
I would like to point out that we already do this. I have a park that was done. It wasn't in the council, but the staff left space for a splash pad in the Arcadia Park, which is very isolated. And the community is now starting to raise funds to actually be able to build that.
And Councillor Wilkinson, I think we all can agree that we all want to see great things in our parks, but I don't want to debate the issue. I'll simply dissent on it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harder has the floor now, please.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. As the chair of the Planning Committee, I can say that absolutely yesterday the discussion around this and the work on this was, I would say, outrageous. It was flying by the seat of our pants, but there was clearly a willingness to understand what it was that Councillor Wilkinson was trying to do. We worked very hard to get to that point. We dealt with the fact that would it be queue jumping. We dealt with the fact that how do we make sure that there is an opportunity should she or her successor or a sponsor or anything be able to have a place within the park that would allow for it to preserve that space. Because as you know, well, those of us in the suburban communities that have these large plans of subdivision, we have parks. They don't say what's in the parks. One of the things that's changing with the Building Better, Smarter Suburbs is that will have clarity. We will be putting more in. We'll be making more use of the land. But in this case, it was a given opportunity. So down the road, and down the road is not in the next few years. This is just a CDP. The plans of subdivision have to come in. We wanted to help Councillor Wilkinson by identifying the possibility of a field house within the largest green space there. And we worked very hard to do it. I'm absolutely not going to support this because I think that without having it under the magnifying glass of the facilities master plan, it does, in effect, make it a queue jump. And I think that that's the way most people would see it. And I can say that Mr. Chenier had input on this as well, and he reminded us that back in 2004, in the facilities master plan of that time, this very concept was suggested as a very good thing for a local councillor to bring forward, taking advantage of an opportunity and making sure that that opportunity would exist when, in fact, the possibility came along. That's what we did yesterday. I'm not willing to change what we did short of cartwheels on this thing for the people that were there. We tried to cover all the bases and make sure that every possibility was there, and I think that the motion from committee did exactly that.
Okay, so Councillor Wilkinson, you've spoken already. You can speak to wrap up in your motion. Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? No? Okay, so Councillor Wilkinson, to wrap up on just your motion.
First of all, just to make sure, because this actually was done by Mr. Mark, I didn't actually ask him to do an amendment, but he brought it forward when I asked him a question. I'd just like to ask him if he could explain the rationale behind this is a minor, the changing of the wording. Even if you don't prove this, what I asked for is still there. It just has a different subject, too.
Mr. Mayor, what this motion achieves is the report, as carried by committee, would only allow the field house to proceed after the facilities master plan had been done. This motion would allow for the potential for the field house to proceed if it either gets 100% funding through the alternative means, such as community fundraising and area-specific development charge, or if it qualifies for 50% funding, at least 50% funding, up to 50% funding, through the annual capital partnership major capital program.
And I just wanted to clarify, I did not ask for this amendment. He came forward to said it would make it clearer, and Councillor Blais, who actually moved to have the piece that's being removed, agreed to it and seconded the motion. That's just a piece of clarification. If it doesn't pass, the field house is still going to be shown there, just going to go in a different procedure. So I would think this would be a little bit cleaner, but if it doesn't pass, I can live with that too.
Okay, Councillor Blais, you should have punched in ahead of time, but we'll let you speak after we vote on the motion, on the main motion, because Councillor Harder has to wrap that up as well. So we have a motion by Councillor Wilkinson, seconded by Councillor Blais, that is before you. On the motion? Carried. Dissent by Councillor. Yeas and nays have been called. No, we're just dealing with Councillor Wilkinson's motion on yeas and nays, Madam Deputy Clerk.
Councillor Moffat?
Yes.
Councillor Eglai?
No.
Councillor Chernushenko?
Yes.
Councillor DeRuse?
No.
Councillor Leeper?
Yes.
Councillor Hughley?
No.
Councillor Taylor?
Yes.
Councillor Blais?
Yes.
Councillor El-Shantiri? Councillor Manette?
No.
Councillor Wilkinson?
Yes.
Councillor Tierney?
No.
Councillor Deans? No. Councillor Cloutier?
Oui.
Councillor Fleury?
Oui.
Councillor McKenney?
Yes.
Councillor Kakish?
Yes.
Councillor Caudry?
Yes.
Councillor Harder?
No.
Councillor Middick?
No.
Councillor Shirelli?
No.
Councillor Nussbaum?
Yes.
Councillor Brockington?
Yes.
Mayor Watson?
Yes.
14 yeas, 9 nays.
Okay, Councillor Blais, did you wish to speak to the main report? Okay. Councillor Harder, on the main report before we vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And on this report, I just wanted to say that it was a very large project that was undertaken. It was developer-led, and with the support of city staff, certainly Mr. Smith is here today, and Dana Collings and Wendy C., and with their support. But the fact is that it was extremely well attended, all of the meetings that were held. It was very much driven by the community, and I think that that's something that we always wish. So as far as this being a community design plan, it's the start of a development. As I said in my previous conversation, there will plans of subdivision that will come forward, and over the years that will develop. But I'm confident that a lot of good work has gone into this.
Great. Councillor Wilkinson on the main report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor El-Shantiri and I have been involved with this for the last 3 years, and he would like to speak to this today as well to say what I'm going to say, so I'm really speaking for both of us. I really want to thank the people who led this. We had a community committee that met 20 times on this report, and the members of that committee were fantastic in going through things and giving very realistic comments and taking the issues, which were many and very complex, and working through to try to come up with something that was workable. That's not a perfect document. It's impossible in complex areas to do that. But I wanted to publicly say how much we appreciate the work done by the members of the Community Design Committee itself that puts in so much. And to the other members of the public who actually opened up their homes. We have 3 2-acre rural lot developments that are immediately adjacent to this. And it's very complicated when someone's in a rural estate suddenly to see a big urban areas coming on top of them. We had meetings in people's homes to discuss how we would deal with the border between them. We had all the people in my ward that back onto it. We had a meeting to go over how it would happen with them. We had a meeting on the old Carp Road with the people who were concerned about that, as well as 4 general, large public meetings. Sometimes so many people came we could hardly get them in the room. And so there was a great deal of interest and a lot of participation in putting this together. And I found yesterday the plan you have ahead is number 27 of the plans that were developed over that time frame. And so I want to thank the staff who worked on it too, particularly Wendy and Murray Chow from the consultant who was here, who put up with a great deal from all of us and kept their calm throughout and produced all of these plans and discussions. And I agree with Councillor Harder that this is a way that the more you can get people involved in a community plan like this, the more likely you are to have things move forward more smoothly as the development comes forward. So I just wanted to make on the record, Mr. Mayor, that there were a lot of people involved in this, and the work that they did was really enormously important in coming over with a plan that is 99% acceptable, and we have to work through the other 1%.
Okay, thank you. On the report as amended, carried. On the summary of submissions, carried. Our next item that's been held is application to alter the Somerset House, 352 Somerset Street West, a property designated under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act and located in the Centretown Heritage Conservation District. Demande de modification de la Somerset House au 352 Rue Somerset. If, I have comments if no one else does.
Mr. Mayor, I put myself on the...
I don't know. I have Councillor McKenney.
Oh.
Councillor McKenney, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few comments that I want to make on Somerset House. You know, we all know it's been 10 years that this building has been in disrepair, and what should be an iconic building that's located at an important intersection in the heart of downtown is instead an eyesore. The owner has allowed the building to deteriorate to the point that a portion of it is beyond saving and must be demolished. This is demolition by neglect, and we are holding our noses today and approving this demolition. But what can we do with Somerset House? I think it's important to understand that City Council actually does not have the authority to order city staff to issue fines or penalties for this. Staff have delegated authority directly from the province as per the Ontario Building Code Act, and any orders related to property standards must come from an officer and not council. So what can council do? Well, one of the tools that we have in our toolkit is expropriation, and that's why I asked staff to provide me with options for expropriation at Monday's Built Heritage Subcommittee meeting. Expropriation is a municipal power to take land under the Provincial Expropriations Act. Furthermore, subsection 36(2) of the Ontario Heritage Act also authorizes municipalities to expropriate property that is required for the purposes of conserving buildings of heritage or cultural value. And it's interesting to note that in 1985, the city did expropriate buildings at 503-507 King Edward Avenue for the purpose of heritage conservation. The city ultimately sold that property to a developer to uphold the heritage character of the building. So we need all options on the table to reintegrate this building into the urban fabric. The owner has an obligation to restore the building and maintain its heritage value. So today, this is a notice that either, the building owner steps up or City Council will need to step in. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chernyshenko, please.
And the Mayor will know what I'm about to say here, because the moment this one came up, I thought to myself, how many seconds before the calls start coming in on the former West Coast Video building in my ward along Bank Street, which, although not falling down structurally in the same way, continues to be the same kind of an eyesore that the public looks at, the businesses look at, and wonder, can't we do anything about this? As far as I'm aware, several years since we last had a discussion of this sort, the rules haven't changed, the tools haven't grown to any degree. I'd like to ask the question of staff, in terms of tools that we can use, my understanding is on a building of this sort, they are exempt from paying full, or there's a provision whereby they do not pay full property taxes, or can apply to not pay full property taxes. That is a provincial regulation that we must follow. Is that right?
That's correct.
So our only means to, essentially, they would be applying to the province for that exemption. It would have doesn't come through council in any way.
Vacancy exemptions come to, or they're not exemptions, they're rebates, come to the City of Ottawa, and we process those in the Finance Department. And it's under the rules that are established by the province in the Municipal Act, so we have to provide them with the reduction in their taxes.
And essentially, we are obliged to, if it is vacant and determined to be vacant, we can't say, no, not going to give you that exemption because we don't like what you're doing or not doing with the building.
That is correct.
Right. So we are limited. Is it then our only opportunity to change this would be through some effort with the provincial government to write to the appropriate minister and seek changes to that rule to deal with really egregious cases like this of 5-10 years of a property. Many have described it, the missing tooth in the smile of what's otherwise a vibrant street or neighborhood.
We've actually already written to the province at the request of the mayors a couple of years ago to deal with another set of properties where it was more or less the same thing was happening, to ask them to consider changing the vacancy rebate rules. The Ministry of Finances right now is in the process of meeting with interested parties to determine what changes should be made. I can tell you that the interests vary significantly. Like, they will not make it just based on what the municipality wants. They also want to talk to the industry, to the BIA. So they are in the process right now. I expect we will hear something back later this year with any planned changes to how the vacancy rebate rules will work.
Okay, so they are reviewing more than just case by case. They're actually reviewing the whole set of rules, if you will. Yeah.
They are reviewing it writ large.
Okay. So that's clearly where I would want to go. I think we would all agree that while property rights do and probably should allow a property owner to leave their property vacant for some period of time if they are looking for better market conditions or evaluating options, that when it goes on for this length, that has to be something that a municipality should have greater influence on in the future. So I guess I'll follow closely. You'll report back to us, I assume, the moment we hear anything from the province on that.
Yes, we will, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Conseiller Fleury, s'il vous plaît.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to support my colleague in terms of the discussions on expropriation. I think there are situations where we have to get involved in order to send a message to this type of owner that these properties are very important to the community.
And I'm curious to hear from Mr. O'Connor on the matter, or Mr. Moser. We've certainly had pretty good results from our proceedings in court, specifically for Our Lady School. I do not understand why this property would be any different, since we have been successful in a very similar case.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just waiting for Mr. Badin to come forward. But yes, there's each individual property each case is dealt on its own merits. I know we've certainly had with this site on Somerset, there have been court proceedings and those have been concluded. We certainly have just had discussions with our legal services on going that route with this site. But certainly the summary that we've come to, the conclusion we've come to, is that there has been, if you will, attempts to make progress, and we've approved a site plan and zoning a number of years ago. Fortunately, nothing's happened with that. We've been monitoring the situation related to the stability of the property, and that has been positive up to the recent result we got. So we are certainly, the issue was in front of committee and council today, because there certainly has been a dramatic change in the stability of the property. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Badin in terms of, anything else we have thought about in terms of prosecution.
Thank you, Your Honor. We are definitely looking into further prosecution on this case. We're dealing directly with legal services in this matter, and it has been a subject of some discussions. And further to Mr. Moser's comments, there has been elements of construction and work and repair and alteration in the last 2 years for the issuance of a number of building permits to repair and restore the building itself. And there have been inspections taking place. Clearly, some of the works have not been done maybe as quickly as it could have. However, there has been efforts at that point, and so it's more about the pace of time more than anything else right now.
Yeah, I guess to me this summarizes a long list of issues. Is we have to support our heritage planners and the community when we identify properties that are of heritage considerations. And I believe that, in my mind, we're at the time where we recognize there needs to be a change, but there was issues of protocol on how bylaw services and building code, even fire, were involved. And I hope that we see the day where there's an internal collaboration and protocol established so that we don't get to the point where properties are like that, and that we can expedite court proceedings, and that at that point we aren't left with what we have today, which is a situation of demolition by neglect. I continue to, although I'm happy with the court hearing at Our Lady School, I continue to see this similar issues at 197 201 Wilbrod. And I certainly support my colleague in whatever way, and I think that the conversation specifically to expropriation need to be had in extreme cases, but this all leads to an initial protocol be set internally to resolve the matter in the first place.
Merci. Councillor Leeper, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just to reiterate the sentiments and the comments of my colleagues, the heritage of this city absolutely matters. There are a number of heritage buildings in Kitchissippi Ward, the future of which is unclear. I wish we weren't in this position today of passing a motion that sets us on this course towards some significant demolition, but here we are. It is the pragmatic choice. Where we have tools to use, we have a new city manager, and my ask of the new city manager is, let's use those tools. Where we need new ones, let's ask for them. And I would add one other consideration, which is where we have the opportunity to demonstrate leadership as a city with respect to our own buildings, let's make sure that we're setting an example. I point to the Bayview Yards building, which was falling apart for years. It was only the persistence of some of the members of the community that made sure that it was preserved. There was a proposal made from the community for arts uses, a proposal made from the city for a film studio, and then finally, and thanks to having the building still standing, we're able to turn it into the Innovation Center today, which is going to be one of the marquee projects for the community. Heritage is an economic opportunity. Heritage is a cultural opportunity. Let's take advantage of every tool that we have to ensure that we're exploiting those opportunities and that we're forcing the developers in this community to not allow demolition by neglect to happen, but to ensure that they're exploiting the economic opportunities and the cultural opportunities of heritage as well. I wish that I wasn't in the position of having to support this motion. I will, but I certainly hope that this situation is not allowed to happen again. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Leeper. Other comments? I'd like to offer a couple of words on this issue. Comme vous le savez, j'ai toujours été...
As you know, I will always be a supporter of heritage conservation in Ottawa, and certainly in all of Ontario.
And protect the city's heritage assets, including the historic decision to invest in the redevelopment of the now magnificent horticulture building at Lansdowne Park, which is now receiving the highest level of public use in its history. And in fact, in my rookie year as a city councillor, rookie term, I worked with former councillors Hume and O'Neill to help preserve the Aberdeen Pavilion, something that I think we're all very, very proud of. And also, Council has supported staff's increased enforcement efforts on a number of fronts, and this has been very much in the public eye and has had a degree of support and success. But Somerset House is another story, and it's caught our attention again this week because a developer, an irresponsible developer, has allowed the property to deteriorate to the point where additional damage has been done to the property. The developer has made promises on a number of occasions which he has failed to live up to. This gentleman keeps making promises, and he breaks them on a regular basis, and I have lost trust in his word. There are some who would like us to step in and acquire the property with taxpayer dollars through expropriation. The potential costs to the city of such a foray are quite significant, but Council should be extremely wary of such a move. As you will all know, if we expropriate the property, we will be required to pay for the owner highest and best value. This would amount to rewarding very bad behavior to a developer who snubs his nose at the city and the community on a regular basis. Ceci ne fera que récompenser le
This will only reward somebody who is not behaving properly.
Heritage properties on the Heritage Registry. Without so much as having to lift a finger, the developer gets a big fat check from Ottawa taxpayers, and taxpayers are left holding the bag. And I hope members of Council know that when we have to act as a developer, which is not in our mandate, it doesn't always go well for us on private property. With the federal government currently retrofitting hundreds of thousands of square feet in the core, who will rent or purchase this facility from the City of Ottawa? So I encourage members of Council not go down this path. An alternate route for us is to ask staff to significantly increase their enforcement and coordination efforts. As of today, I'm calling on the City Manager to create a Heritage Matters Task Force that will meet on a quarterly basis to coordinate the City's heritage enforcement efforts. This will include a number of stakeholders, including myself, Jan Harder, Chair of Planning, Toby Nussbaum, the Chair of Built Heritage, our Senior Heritage Planners, our Chief Building Official, our Chief Bylaw Official, and the City's very best legal minds. Je demande aujourd'hui au directeur.
I would ask that a working group be created on heritage that would have meetings every 3 months in order to review the progress.
Also be inviting a community representative from the Built Heritage community group to take part in the task force, and the task force will meet for the first time in August. We'll also need to, as we've done in the past, and you've directed me to get the province of Ontario on board to give us the necessary tools to crack down harder on irresponsible landlords that own heritage properties and allow them to deteriorate to the point we see the sad, pathetic condition that Somerset House is in. A good example, and I think, I can't remember which member of Council, David Chernyshenko, I believe, just raised the issue of property taxes. Well, an empty building can apply for property taxes to go from the business rate down to the residential rate. So in essence, we're allowing these eyesores to stay up, and they're actually paying less taxes than what they should be, and so there's no incentive for them to move quickly. And we know in Councillor Nussbaum's ward and Councillor Fleury's ward, there was one landlord that was particularly irresponsible, and we did have some success cracking down through property standards. But we also know the example of the West Coast video. I was there just yesterday looking at it. It's been at least over 10 years, if not longer, sitting there acting as a gaping hole in the landscape and streetscape of Old Ottawa South, just south of Sunnyside. So I've asked our city manager to bring these people together. We have to do a better job of enforcing the laws and bylaws that we have, but we also need the province of Ontario to be on board. And in fact, I'm speaking to the new minister responsible for culture and heritage this afternoon, and this is one of the first items I'm going to be asking her to review at the provincial level. So we have recommendations that came from Built Heritage Committee to Planning Committee and now to Council before us. On the motions? Carried. Thank you all very much. Our next motion is to adopt reports. Motion portant adoption de rapport, Conseil Moffat et Middick, s'il vous plaît.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Middick, that the report from the City's Integrity Commissioner entitled Report to Council on an Inquiry by the Lobbyist Registrar Playground Partnership Project in Mooney's Bay Park, the report from the City Clerk and Solicitor entitled Status Update Council Inquiries and Motions for the period ending 8th of July 2016, the report from the City Treasurer entitled City Debenture issuance documentation requirement, Agricultural Affairs Committee Report 18, Audit Committee Report 8, Environment Committee Report 10, Finance and Economic Development Committee Report 16, Planning Committee Reports 28 and 29, Transit Commission Report 10, Transportation Commission Committee Reports 16 be received and adopted as amended.
On the motion, carried, adopté. Motions of which notice have been previously given, motion dont avis a été donné entièrement. Councillor Brockington, seconded by myself. Councillor Brockington, if you'd like to introduce the motion, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, notice was given at our last council meeting and certainly following up today. I'm happy with your support, Your Worship, to move on behalf of the Hellenic community of Ottawa their request for the installation of commemorative street sign blades along a 3-block stretch of Prince of Wales, which is in the vicinity of the Hellenic Church. The Hellenic Church on Prince of Wales is Ottawa's only Greek church and community center, and their most famous or most well-known activity, of course, is the very popular and well-attended 11-day Greek Fest, which happens in August of every year. The motion before us today is a compromise between what was originally asked for and what you have before us now. And that is a direct result of listening to the community through consultation that I held. Originally, the request was for permanent street sign blades for a much longer geographic stretch along Prince of Wales. And what all parties have basically come down to as far as a compromise is to look at a 3-year pilot where we would install these commemorative blades during the month of August, and that is the main festival month, and certainly there seems to be agreement there. The creation, installation, and removal of the blades will be paid for by the Hellenic community of Ottawa, not Ottawa's taxpayers. And I think the whereas statements are quite self-explanatory, so if there are any concerns or questions, I'd be happy to address them. Also attached in the package to members of council is what the actual street sign blade would look like, which has the text Reflections of Greece, which is bilingual, Reflet de la Grèce, with the Greek flag as well. So, Your Worship, this has gone through the community. This is a compromise, and I strongly support this and hope that all members of council will as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. On the motion, Zito, carried. Motion by Councillor Fleury, seconded by Councillor Leeper with respect to the Byward Market. Councillor Fleury.
I have two motions for the market, so I don't know. This one relates to the, this is seconded by Councillor Leeper. This relates to the Byward Market Standholders Association. There's a notice of motion at last council. What you can see is this is a request from the Byward Market Standholders Association at their last AGM. All the funds that are collected by their members are controlled by the membership for marketing purposes in the area. So they're asking for an additional $3 surcharge for a daily permit and a $25 surcharge for the monthly permit. So I'll read the therefore be resolved that City Council approve that the Byward Market Program bylaw be amended to establish that the surcharge remitted to the Byward Market Standholders Association are $25 per monthly permit or equivalent to a $3 daily permit effective July 15, 2016, and at the 2016 revenue expenditure portion of the market budget be adjusted accordingly with no net impact on the city's operational budget.
Okay, on the motion, carried. Motion requiring suspension of the rules of procedure. Motion exigeant la suspension des règles de procédure. Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Monette, with respect to acting mayor on suspension. Carried. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Monette. We're bringing this at the request of the clerk's office. Given the summer schedule and people's availability, the clerk has advised that it is in their comfort zone to have a member of council designated as an acting deputy mayor. And so this motion displayed on the screen essentially does that, with Councillor El Shantiri, who has agreed to step up or step in and act as an acting deputy mayor from the period July 14th to August 30th, 2016. Given the requirement to often sign paperwork on short timelines.
Great. Councillor Hubley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to clarify we're not doing this because Eli's the only person not in the room.
It could be. You snooze, you lose. On the motion, carried. We thank Eli for being voluntold. Councillor McKenney, seconded by myself, has a motion with respect to encroachment bylaw on Elgin Street on suspension of the rules. Carried. Councillor McKenney. This is the new golf course.
This is the new golf course on Elgin Street that being brought to you by myself and the mayor. Just when you thought it was less fun to go down to Elgin Street, we're going to allow for the installation of a temporary mini putt course to be used by folks down on the corner of Elgin and Frank Street. It's here in front of you. Essentially, the folks at Slice & Co. installed a temporary course. Didn't have all of the hoops in place, so we're doing that with this here. So therefore be it resolved that council approve a waiver of the city's encroachment bylaw to permit the temporary encroachment installed on the road allowance abutting 399 Elgin Street, similar to that of a parklet, subject to the proponent entering into an agreement with the city and the payment of related temporary encroachment fees.
Right. On the motion, carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next motion is by Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor DeRuse, on suspension. Carried. Councillor Moffat, if you'd like to introduce the motion with respect to an anomaly of a property in your ward.
Thank you. It is certainly that. It turns out that we have a house built on a road allowance, and the road allowance did not come up on the mapping program. Unfortunately, it's registered on. It is on title. The house was built in 1976. And upon transfer of a sale, the sale was blocked because of the issue of the road allowance actually being where the house is. So this cleans that up. This officially closes the road allowance, and then conveys the property for $1 to the purchaser. Since more work has to be done between now and when we meet on council in August, there's also a part of the motion that speaks to forming an ad hoc committee comprised of myself, the mayor's office, as well as Councillor Eglai, in order to deal with any issues that we have arising so that we can ratify this in short order.
Okay, on the motion, carried. Adopte. Next is moved by Councillor Middick, seconded by Councillor Moffat, with respect to a sewer surcharge issue on a community farm on suspension. Carried. Councillor Middick, if you'd like to introduce, this is our Just Foods farm in Gloucester.
Yeah, as we know, Just Foods a city partner in 2017 and many other things. Part of their startup, something was overlooked in their sewer charge, so this is a motion to allow them to restructure over the next couple of years, but I'll let my seconder talk to the technical side of things since he put most of it together.
Councillor Moffat in his capacity as chair of ARAC.
Thank you. So we do have a process at the city. I know I mentioned it in my capacity as chair of Pineview a couple years ago, was that we can exempt certain businesses, certain groups from paying for the sewer surcharge. The reality is that there are certain organizations out there, like a golf course, that use city water but don't actually discharge to the sewer, yet they pay the sewer surcharge. Unfortunately, Just Food does not meet the threshold for that policy, but it is quite unique in what they do. So in the event that they, over the next several years, they could reach that threshold, then it would be fine. But at this point, they don't. And we looked at how unique the situation is, and so we're just applying that same policy to them in this motion. So they're still on the hook for what they currently owe the city in terms of arrears on the sewer charges, but this would allow them from this date forward to be exempt from those charges. So they still pay water, of course, the water that they use, but they aren't then paying the sewer surcharge, the 117% surcharge on top of that water service. So I worked with Councillor Middick's office and Just Food, as well as staff Dixon Weir and Wendy Stephenson. So thanks for that on that to try to remediate this issue.
Right, and as you know, Just Foods is our partner for the community gardens throughout the city. On the motion, carried. The final motion I have with respect to motions requiring suspension of the rules are moved by Councillor Fleury, seconded by Councillor Leeper, with respect to the downtown Rideau Business Improvement Area boundary adjustment on suspension. Carried. Councillor Fleury on the motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, this relates to a request from businesses along the corridor. As you know, we've launched into the voting process for the expansion, and businesses, due to the summer period, have asked that we prolong that period. So that's what we see in front of us. That therefore be it resolved, read as follow, that Council approve the extension of the deadline for receiving written objections by the clerk of the municipality with respect to the proposed expansion of the boundaries of the downtown Rideau improvement area from being July 30th to extending it to August 31st, 2016.
Okay, on the motion, carried, adopté. Are there any other motions requiring suspension of the rules of procedure at this time? Est-ce qu'il y a des autres motions?
Any other motions?
In-camera item, point à huis clos, City Manager, Directeur Général. We have a motion from Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Middick.
Right. Be it resolved that the rules of procedure be suspended to permit the receipt of a briefing from the city manager with respect to the organizational structure, alignment of the City of Ottawa, and the consideration of any motions and recommendations by council in an open session. And be it further resolved that City Council resolve in camera pursuant to the Procedure Bylaw 2014-441, subsections 13(1)b, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including staff, 13(1)d, labor relations or employee negotiations, in order to receive a briefing from the city manager with respect to the organizational alignment of the City of Ottawa.
Okay. On the motion, carried. Okay, so we'll ask the clerk's office to shut the sound system down and ask people to leave, and we will report back once we're finished with the presentation. Thank you.
Testing, 1, 2.
Okay, if members of council could come and take their seats. The sound system, I believe, is now up and running. And if we could ask members who are in the green room if they could come forward as well. For the benefit of those returning to the meeting room, City Council just met in camera in order to receive a briefing from the City Manager with respect to the organizational alignment of the City of Ottawa. Specifically, Council dealt with matters related to changes to the City's organizational structure. The City Manager will be providing his presentation on this matter in open session, to be followed by a motion. During the in-camera session, no votes were taken other than procedural motions and/or directions to staff. So I believe now, Mr. Kanalakis, you have a presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Today I'm presenting work that I actually started on May 2nd. As I pointed out to Council, this is day 47 for me. It's my 47th work day, and I'm here in front of you to present my recommendations in terms of the long-term stability for this organization, in terms of an organizational realignment. And I was appointed with a mandate to create long-term stability in the organization, improve service delivery. I immediately undertook to do an expansive outreach effort to see what people are feeling about the organization, what the issues are that we have to challenge. I've met with each member of council 2 times in the last 47 days. I've reached out to over 3,600 staff directly through 10 in-person engagement sessions, staff meetings, and I received about 1,000 surveys. I've talked to or met with over 75 internal and external stakeholder groups, including all associated boards of council, and I've received over 10,500 ideas from staff on the things that we need to address in this organization to be able to move forward. The mayor and members of council, the current senior management team, and 71% of the employees highlighted organizational effectiveness as the largest issues within the city's current structure. In fact, 87% of all the people that made comments about what things we have to address talked about organizational effectiveness. So the key findings, to summarize the comments that have come back to me and in my discussions and written comments, is that the current organizational structure and internal governance is unsustainable. I didn't find any one person that believed the current organizational structure is the one we should remain with and is working best for the benefit of our residents. There's a requirement to flatten management and create a more responsive organization. We need a clear set of priorities. Staff are looking for priorities to be established, to be clear on what they need to focus their efforts on. Staff are feeling the administrative burdens and the manual processes which feel inhibits and limits their ability to do the best job that they can. They feel there are too many silos in the organizations and we need to increase collaboration between ourselves and with council. The acting positions that are in place right now, they feel there's too many of them and they've been on too long, and that we need to be very targeted and proactive in our succession planning to prepare people to lead this organization in the various levels. There's a strong belief that the departments must be aligned to match city priorities. There has to be a clear sense of alignment with what we're trying to do. And staff want to feel empowered to make decisions with support of their leaders. They want faster decisions, and they want to get decisions without having to go through so many layers. So the principles in the organizational structure are organizational effectiveness and enhanced service delivery. Those are the 2 things that almost everybody talked about, 87%. We need to establish a consolidated senior leadership team with direct lines of accountability to deliver on council's priorities. We need to group areas with similar mandates to enhance service delivery and remove administrative and operational silos. We need to focus on organizational culture and establish a clear customer service focus by leveraging innovation and technology. That came out loud and clear. We need to engage our employees, empower them to make decisions, and encourage career growth and development. And we need to consolidate our administrative functions to drive efficiency and cost containment. Costing, the organization and what I presented, the cumulative savings over this term of council from the first step of the new organizational structure is $2.7 million. We have an estimated one-time severance cost of $1.29 million, which will be from reserves, and there will be future cost savings realized in the months leading up to the budget tabling in November. I'm going to assemble the new leadership team immediately after today, and they'll be mandated to protect frontline service delivery while eliminating duplication and waste in their respective departments. We'll be looking at the consolidation of services and reviews to management levels and spans of control as we move towards designing the rest of our organization and aligning services with our management structure. Today, on July 13th, Council received my recommendations for the new organizational structure and its senior leadership team I proposed. I will begin, after I leave this meeting, the notification process to any staff that have been affected by this. From July to August, we will be assembling, as I said, the team to start beginning the work of aligning the management structure of the departments, aligning the business support functions of the departments, reviewing our strategic and corporate priorities, identifying further areas for consolidation, and tabling a budget that incorporates many of these solutions. From September to December, we'll be developing and approving our 2017 budget and tabling it in November. We'll be communicating with staff full on over the summer into the fall continuously to ensure they're informed of the direction we're going. And we'll be executing step 2 of the organizational alignment during that period. Council today, in terms of the rollout, receives the organizational alignment recommendations from me. Human resources meetings will occur immediately following council, and as I said, I'll be meeting personally with affected people, as will other members of my team will be meeting immediately following council. Therefore, detailed information will be available to staff, the public, and the media later this afternoon after I do those notifications in respect of the people that will be affected by these changes.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Kanellakis. We have a motion from Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Monette. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The whereases are on the screen before us, I believe. It's essentially the work that's led us here. I'll simply read the therefore be it resolved. Therefore be it resolved that City Council approve the elimination of the 2 Deputy City Manager positions and portfolios, namely City Operations and Planning and Infrastructure. And be it further resolved that City Council receive the City of Ottawa's organizational alignment and new organizational structure as presented by the City Manager at the City Council meeting of 13 July 2016 to be reported out publicly once finalized later today. And be it further resolved that City Council approve an exemption to Section R.6.3.14 of the bilingualism policy for the recommended candidate or candidates for position or positions in the senior leadership team described during the in-camera session, on the understanding that the individual or individuals, when appointed, undertake French language training, and that progresses in this area is assessed as part of the annual performance review process. And be it further resolved that City Council authorize the City Manager to delegate any authority that was previously assigned to the 2 Deputy City Managers or any member of the former senior management team under the Delegation of Authority bylaw or any other bylaw of the City, subject to any existing limitations, to any member of the new senior management team to be consistent with the new organizational structure once it is finalized, until such time as these bylaws can be formally updated as part of the midterm governance review, and on the understanding that the City Manager will notify City Council of those assignments. And be it further resolved that City Council repeal bylaw number 2006-472, being a bylaw to appoint a Deputy City Clerk, and that the City Manager be delegated the authority to submit directly to Council any bylaws necessary to implement the final organizational alignment.
Okay, thank you. On the motion, yeas and nays?
Councillor Moffat?
Yes.
Councillor Eglai?
Yes. Yes.
Councillor Chernyshenko?
Yes.
Councillor DeRuse?
Yes.
Councillor Leeper?
Yes.
Councillor Hubley?
Yes.
Councillor Taylor?
Yes.
Councillor Blais?
Oui.
Councillor El-Shantiri, Conseiller Manette?
Oui.
Councillor Wilkinson?
Yes.
Councillor Tierney?
Oui.
Councillor Deans?
Yes.
Conseiller Cloutier?
Oui.
Conseiller Fleury?
Oui.
Councillor McKenney?
Yes.
Councillor Kakish?
Yes.
Councillor Caudry?
Yes.
Councillor Harder?
Yes.
Councillor Middick?
Yes.
Councillor Shirelli?
Yes.
Councillor Nussbaum?
Yes.
Councillor Brockington?
Yes.
Mayor Watson?
Yes.
23 yeas.
Thank you. Members of Council and members of the public, with the passage of this motion on the City Manager's organizational alignment, I want to take a moment to publicly thank our new City Manager for all of the hard work he and his office have put into this initiative over the past 2 months. Je veux remercier Steve Kanellakis.
I want to thank Steve Kanellakis and his team for his excellent work over the past few months. At the same time, I would ask City Council members to show respect when we will be notifying the employees in the coming days. Their right to privacy is very important for us.
Thank all members of Council for their very thoughtful and sensitive contributions to today's discussion. Very much appreciate that. Notices a motion for consideration at subsequent meetings. Motion to introduce bylaws. Motion portant présentation de règlement. Conseiller Moffat, s'il vous plaît.
That the bylaws listed on the agenda under the motion to introduce bylaws, 3 readings, be read and passed, and be it further resolved that the rules of procedure be waived to introduce, read, and pass the bylaw authorized by the motion regarding organizational alignment.
Motion carried. Adopté. Confirmation bylaw. Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Middick.
The following bylaw be read and passed to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting of July 13th, 2016.
Carried. Are there any written inquiries, Madam Deputy Clerk? No. Adjournment. Councillor Moffat.
La délibération du Conseil du 13 juillet 2016.
The meeting of July 13, 2016 is adjourned.
Carried. Carried. Thank you all very much. Have a pleasant.
Merci beaucoup. Bon été à tous.